Welcome back to my channel. If you've not been here before, my name is Rachel and I am an indie author with over 50 books published, and I like to come on and just talk about things to do with writing and possibly help you with your writing career. And today I want to come on and chat about writing a book in 30 days, or more importantly, writing 50,000 words in 30 days. Because as I record this, it's October. We are just over a week away, probably about 10 days away from the November month, and I know NaNoWriMo doesn't exist anymore as it was, but the spirit of NaNoWriMo still exists. I did make a video of alternate things you can do instead of NaNoWriMo. If you don't know what that is, I suppose I should actually say what NaNoWriMo stands for. It's National Novel Writing Month. It was a thing set up by Chris Beatty that used to run on a website called NaNoWriMo.org. There was a lot of things that shut down. You can find out on the internet what happened to that. It's, you know, that's a completely different topic, but it was a thing every November where writers all around the world kind of came together to write 50,000 words in 30 days. And the whole idea about it wasn't to get a book in a month or that. It was just to write, to get you writing, basically, to get your backside in the chair, and that was the challenge. And I think it was going over 20 years, so I last year did my 20th year in NaNoWriMo, so this year was going to be year 21. I am really sad that the place has gone. It was one of my favourite things every year, and there are alternatives. They don't quite feel the same, but you know, they are there for us to do the challenge. I'm going to probably partake in Pro Writing Aid's Novel November, definitely on the For the Word challenge, and then I was looking at Craig Martell, who does Successful Indie Author, is doing one, and I cannot remember what he's called it, but I've signed up for that. I just like tracking, I like being part of the community, so that's what I'm doing for Nano. I'm still going to call it Nano. I'm sorry if that bothers you, because I know some people do get upset with the stuff that all happened there. It's not my intention to upset you, it's just what my brain wants to call it. So anyway, this video is going to talk, I want to talk to you about tips of writing 50,000 words in the month of November, or in 30 days, because you can be watching this video any time of the year, and how it's possible, because 50,000 words feels like a lot of words, and it is, but it also isn't. It's only 1,667 words per day, which is not a lot, depending on your life and how busy you are. Obviously, if you are working a 70-hour job, you've got children, that can feel like a lot. But for me, I can only speak of my experience. I find it quite easy. I always have done, but I am a fast writer and I can get the words down really, really quickly. So 1,667 words is a couple of writing sprints for me and I'm done. Having participated in NaNoWriMo for 20 years, having written 50 odd books, being a place where I now find that word count easy, I have a lot of tips I could give you to help you also achieve it. And 50,000 words doesn't actually have to be your goal. If you are taking part in something like the Rough Draft Challenge, that's run by Heart Breathing Sarah Cannon, she has a thing where you set your own word goal, so you could set 25,000 words or you could set 10,000 words, it doesn't matter. Just writing in the month, I have some tips for you to get you through the month without feeling like you're gonna burn out. And I have, over the 20 years of participating in this kind of competition, had several versions of how it works. So I had one year where I didn't win, and that was because I was studying at the same time. I was studying for exams, I was studying for a dissertation. It was too hard to switch my brain from academic all day to creative in the evening, and I think I only managed about 7,000 words for the whole month, and that's the only year I didn't win. And it was very sad for me that year. I just had to let it go. I could not keep my head in the creative space. Then I also had another year where I wrote 100,000 words in 10 days. But I burnt myself out for a while. I don't advise doing that. It took me about 6 weeks before I wrote anything again. But I've also had that. And then I've also had the times where I've got to the last 2 or 3 days and thought, oh my god, I've still got 10,000 words to go and I'm really behind. And then, like, on the last day, I've blasted all the words out just to win. I've had ups and downs. So there's a lot of lessons in that on how to achieve writing a book in a month, or 50,000 words in a month, or 25,000 words in a month, or whatever your goal is. And I want to share those tips with you. So one of the things is know what you're writing before you start. And this depends on what kind of writer you are. I am not an outliner. I don't plot. I'm a discovery writer or kind of a plantser. I will start writing the story, get as far as I can with stuck, and then kind of like play a little bit with a plot and then carry on writing. But that doesn't mean pantsers have absolutely no idea about their story. We have ideas for the story. We know key scenes we want to reach to. There's a scene that's inspired us to write it. There's kind of thing that has made us want to get to where we are. It's like in my Death Dealer series, I knew who my character was, and this is what you need to know. Who is your character? So I knew I had Harper, and I knew I had Ethan, and I knew I wanted Ethan to be working at the Mages Council. I knew I wanted him to be a bounty hunter. I knew I wanted him to be like this rough and ready guy who was like biker size, you know, big boots, leather jacket, lived in a flat kind of thing by himself, friends with this police officer. I knew the kind of person I wanted him to be, and then I knew who I wanted Harper to be. And so before you start, know your characters and know who you want them to be. Kind of solidify them as much as you can in your brain to be actual people, because that will inspire the story, because you know how they're going to act. And so the world you put them in, you know how they're going to react in that world, and that helps spark your idea. Also, try and have an idea of what your story is about and what is getting in the way. So, famous idea is a boy finds out on his birthday that he's actually a wizard. That story from that could go absolutely anywhere that you wanted to take it. And obviously the actual author of that book took it different to this whole portal world, this magical world, but you could do it completely different. And you kind of need to know who your character is, what they want, and where they are. And off you go. And if you have some key scenes that you want to write, that you know are coming up, like, note those down. I tend to go in a story, although I'm a discovery writer, there's always like a situation in my brain that I can see, and it's either way off into the future of my story, or it's the catalyst of the story. Like the second book of my Death Dealer series, I had the idea that she was driving down a rainy lane, and then she saw this guy in a white shirt walking down the road, and he like looked kind of lost, and she just had this urge to help him. And it was based on the Woman in White story, and so she helped him, and then he vanishes, because I love ghost stories and I love those kind of things. So tip 1 is know what you're writing before you start. Tip 2 is using scene cards, and this will depend on what kind of writer you are. If you are an outliner or a plotter and you have like an in-depth plot, then you might have plot cards for every scene and every chapter in your story. If you are like me, I will just have a few key notes written down, so I will know that I want this scene, you know, there's maybe about 10 scenes that are in my head that I know wants to happen in the story. So just noting those things down for yourself it means you're not going into a total blank canvas and you have a direction to go. And I also find if I start to get stuck, kind of picking up one of these and reading it puts the inspiration back in my brain. But also, as you are writing, if you are a discovery writer like me, if I get stuck, I will use scene cards or kind of sketch the next few chapters of what I'm wanting to do, where I'm wanting to go. I will even journal about what it is, and that can really help you if you get stuck. So my third tip is to sprint. This is probably my most valuable tip ever. When I did my very first NaNoWriMo, and that was back in 2004, I started it late, and I discovered it through the author Kelly Armstrong because I was a fan on her site, and she challenged us to it, and I discovered a program called Write or Die, and it was just like a basic program, and you could set it on different modes, and you would set a timer for how long on it. And so I figured out that 10 minutes was my best amount of time to write, because I had children, I had a job, I could easily slot 10 minutes in. And through lots of experimented, I realised that in 10 minutes I could write 500 words. So I would get on this Write or Die program, I would set the timer for 10 minutes, I would set the goal for 500 words, and I'd go. And I could just shut the world out for 10 minutes and just write my 500 words. And you could set this program onto, like, if you stopped writing paused for so long, an alarm would go off. You could then set it that it would show you a scary picture like a spider. And then there was a kamikaze mode where it would actually go and eat your words. I mean, you wouldn't actually lose them because it saved them in a text document behind the scenes, but seeing your words being eaten because you've stopped writing is kind of scary. But that worked for me, and since then we've, you know, people use the Pomodoro method, which is setting a timer for 25 minutes and just writing, and then 5 minutes break, and then 25 minutes. It's called the Pomodoro because I think it comes from, I think it's Spanish, like it's a tomato timer, something like that. But sprinting is the way I get my words done all the time. If I'm writing on For the Words, I'm sprinting. That is basically a sprinting program. If I'm writing with other people, I'm sprinting. Through COVID, a friend of mine who lives in America, we used to meet at 2 p.m. my time because that was the morning his time. And we would write from 2 p.m. my time to 6 p.m. my time. So it's like 4 hours. And we would do 20-minute sprints and then have 10 minutes of chatter in between. And we would just do this. And by the time I was finished, I'd be coming away from that day with like 6,000 words written. And he'd be coming away with, you know, whatever his words were. And it fitted. So sprinting is probably the most important tip of all of these tips here. But practice with it. You know, experiment with the time of day. Experiment with how long. Because I find 20 minutes is now my sweet spot. If I go to 25 minutes, even though it's only 5 minutes more, I find I'm drifting, I start to procrastinate, it's just that little bit too much for me. But 20 minutes works, 10 minutes is if I'm in a fix. My fourth tip is to find accountability. There are lots of Facebook groups out there in the world. If you're doing something like the Rough Draft Challenge, Sarah has her Heart Breathings group where you can join and you can do accountability. I think the Pro Writing Aid one is going to have like a community. I do a podcast with my co-host Rob Radcliffe called the Indie Author Roadmap. I will link our group down below. You can come in there. Accountability, you can sprint. There is, when you're on like For the Words, you can do battles with monsters together as, you know, a group of people, and you have that accountability. It's not just the sprinting together. You could set your intentions for the day, for the week, for the month or whatever, and keep accountable. I've seen people even use TikTok where they do like a daily TikTok of this is what I want to achieve today, and then later it's like this is what I did achieve today. And it's just having that accountability. So if you don't have someone to actually be accountable to, there are lots of ways to still be accountable. My fifth tip is to train your writing muscles. So depending on when this goes out, it might be a little bit too late, but before you're going to embark on trying to write a full novel in a month or do one of these kind of challenges, test, like I was just saying, test sprints, practice doing things, work out where it fits into your life, practice time of day, see where your energy levels are, because just because we have 4 hours of writing time in the evening does not mean that we have all the energy there is to write. You know, you might have lots of children at home, you might have a job, you might be caring for somebody, you might have health issues that prevent you from writing in the evening. There might be all kind of things. Likewise, you might not be a morning person, you might not be able to get up at like 5 in the morning to write. So train your writing muscles, train your writing schedule basically, and try and test and figure out when is your best writing time, how long you can write for, how many words you can get every day. And do not beat yourself up with whatever the answers to these tests are, because that doesn't help anybody, and it certainly doesn't help you. If you find you can only write 10 minutes a day and you can only write 250 words in those 10 minutes a day, wonderful. Do that every day. So turn up and write for 10 minutes every day while you're having your morning coffee. 250 words, boom, done. Your writing is done. That's going to get you a lot more words than not doing any writing, and at the end of the year that's a full book. So don't dismiss the little wins and the little things. Well, don't dismiss them as little. They are achievements and they are what you can do, and some days you might do better than you want and sometimes you might do worse, but always have the grace with yourself on that one. Tip number 6 is turn off your inner editor. My first Nano and using Write or Die taught me this. So before I discovered NaNoWriMo, I had written my first novel 3 times. I'd written it in third person the first time, I'd written it in first person, then I rewrote it in third person but with a different story and a different perspective. I drove myself crazy. I was lucky if I ever got past chapter 10 because I was trying to make it perfect and I couldn't, and by the time I got to chapter 10 it was just feeling a mess. So I kept going back and starting it again, and I just got myself in this loop. When I discovered NaNoWriMo, and we always had to move forward because keep refreshing the same few thousand words was not going to get me to 50,000 words. It forced me to move on, which was the goal of the thing. It forced me to not fix anything, to just write the story, and partaking in that first nano was what actually freed me from my inner editor. I am now at a point where I don't even fix typos, and it drives everybody crazy because I write super fast and pretty much every word is a typo in my manuscript. I'm not even kidding you. If I can find a screenshot, I'll put it up on the screen and you can see the state of my writing. It's an absolute mess, but I don't care. I can fix all that. My priority is to get into that flow state, to get the words down, and to just enjoy pouring the story onto the page. So yeah, I know it's hard to turn off your inner editor, but just try, and sprinting can help that. Because just remember, you can fix everything. I might write 100 words and have 97 typos. I can correct all of those. But if I spend my sprinting time trying to get the first 10 words perfect, I might not write those other 90 words. So just try and take it a step at a time. You don't have to be as extreme as me and not fix typos and errors. It's like a friend of mine is writing her first book at the moment and she's really enjoying it, but she had an idea for a new character and she was like, I'm going to have to go back. I've already written 20,000 words, but I need to go back and add him in. And I said to her, no you don't. Just write now as if he's always been there. Just put a placeholder and then just carry on as if he appeared in the past of the book. And just keep writing, because if she was to go back and write those 20,000 words from the beginning, what would happen is she would get 20,000 words in again, or she might get 30,000 words in again, and something else would change and she would go back, and it's just a cycle. So that's a big one with your inner editor, is if you change something in your book, just continue writing as if it's always been that way in your book. Tip number 7, and it kind of ties in with that one, is make yourself a list. Now I have 2 lists on beside me. One is not relevant to my writing whatsoever, and one is my writing. So if I have something that's bugging me, if I have a scene that I can't get right, if there is, for example, a character I decide I want to add, or I want to take a character out, or I know I want to change something, write yourself a list and you can address those things later. Those are for your edits. And it's totally fine, you know, just have a notebook beside you and mark things down and you can go back. And the other one is, I don't know if I'm the only person, and I'm probably not. My brain likes to throw the most random stuff at me if I am writing and my brain wants to go into procrastination mode. And so I'll be writing away and suddenly it'll say to me, I wonder how many hours it takes for Mars to go around the sun, kind of thing. No, and you know, stupid questions. Or I'll have the idea of what can I make for dinner for the whole week. So what I have is also a piece of paper with things my brain wants me to go and Google or to go and do. And I have the promise that when I've finished all my writing, I can go back through that list and Google all those things to my heart's content. What I find is that I don't want to Google them because they were just random thoughts for absolutely no reason, and yeah, it doesn't matter. But if I don't acknowledge them in some way, they bug me until I end up procrastinating and losing my writing time. But if I write them on a piece of paper, I find that that's acknowledged them and I can move on. Tip number 8 is leave yourself breadcrumbs for the next day or the next writing session. I know writers who finish halfway through a sentence, finish halfway through a paragraph, halfway through a scene. I'm not one of those writers. I like to write a full scene or a full chapter and get it to the end. But I will leave myself notes. So at the end of it, I will write kind of, in the next scene, blah, 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 needs to go to here and do this. And it's just while that inspiration is bubbling so I can read the note to myself the next time I sit down and write. Try and do something like that for yourself, because it's a bit hard when you sit down the next day and you're like, where was I going with this? And so you have to reread. It's not impossible. I mean, I've done that loads of times, but now I leave myself notes as to what I wanted to write next. Tip 9 is give yourself micro goals. Tip 9 is give yourself micro goals. So that was the whole point of sprinting with me. They were micro goals, 10 minutes, 500 words, that was my goal. And I had that goal 10 times a day kind of thing, but it didn't matter. It was the singular goal was to write for 10 minutes, 500 words. But set yourself micro goals and, you know, set yourself the goal if you're going to write 100 words. It's fine. The idea of writing 50,000 words, whatever your word goal is for the month, can feel really hard and like a really big mountain. But it's like anything. It's like if you are climbing a literal mountain, it is just steps. So what steps get you there? How can you break it down to get you there? Is it 1,000 words? Do you have to draw 50 circles and you can colour it in every time you get 1,000 words? What is it that motivates you? I know I've seen Sarah Cannon when she does writing retreats and things like that. She has 2 jars and they have like those coloured pebbles in them, and every time she gets, I think it's 1,000 words, she takes it out of that and pops it into the other, and she can just see it growing like that, you know, and that's how it works for her. So figure out something for yourself and make the goal a little bit smaller so you can get there by the end of the month. Tip 11 is to write in different places. This one actually helped me more when I was studying for university, or should I say it's where I discovered it, because when I was at home and I was having to read lots of scientific papers, it was very easy to get, not bored, I wasn't bored of the topic, bored is the wrong word, but kind of like distracted, because it was very hard work, it's very hard going. You know, I was studying for my PhD, so you can imagine the kind of scientific research that I was reading. And my brain would be like, you know, just go and do the dishes, just go and load the dishwasher, load the washing machine, go and hoover. I'd do anything. And I discovered if I went to the uni and sat in the library, even though there was no one at home and I had the peace and quiet, I worked better, because there was nothing that could distract me. It was like that turned my brain off for thinking about being distracted, because there was no options. The only thing I could do was go to the toilet or go and get a coffee, and there's only so many times you can do that. So I also then tried that with my writing. By if I was struggling, I would just take my MacBook to Costa and write, and I find that that really helps me, because when my brain knows there's nothing I can do, I can't get up and go and do anything, it will hone in on the one task. So move your location and see if that works. Tip number 12, we are creatures of habit. Create yourself rituals around your writing. If you have ever read Stephen King's On Writing book, he says he gets to his writing desk at 8 o'clock every morning, he has a glass of water and a vitamin pill beside him, and then he sits down until he's got 2,000 words. He does that daily. And that is a ritual. And what he has done to himself is when he sits down at that time in the morning in that place, his brain is like, okay, we're writing. So create a ritual for yourself and figure out what works for you. I like to write upstairs in my office. I have 2 computers. I'll have one downstairs where I like game and stuff like that, and then I have my kids have all moved out now, so I have one of their bedrooms which I've turned into my office. And even though the same things are available to me, when I'm in my office I don't get distracted as easily, and I will write. If I'm downstairs on my other computer, it can be just as silent, no one in my house, I am on social media, I am loading up a game, I am going to do something that's not my desk, and that is because that's my fun time place and this is my writing space. And so I have that trigger for myself that says when I'm in this chair in this place, I'm writing. Tip 13 is to bank words early. When we are fresh out of the gate of the 1st of November or whatever the day is you're starting your writing challenge, we are so full of that energy. You know, when I used to, every November, I would literally write at midnight, and I would get my daily word count in before I went to bed. It was like I was so amped up with the energy and the wanting to start to write that I could write loads. Take advantage of that energy at the beginning of your writing challenge and bank the words early. If your goal is to write 1,000 words a day, and on the first day you write 1,000 words and you're like, I could write more but I'm not going to because that's my goal. No, if you want to write 2,000, 3,000 words, do it. Because there are going to be days in the month that you cannot predict where you may be sick, or someone else is sick, or you're tired, or you're busy, or your mental health isn't working, or I don't know, there's a blackout and electricity goes. Get the words in early. They are kind of like your safety net if anything happens and you just need it. Tip 14 is celebrate every single win. And this is actually something I've been trying to do myself recently, because I'm not someone who does this, but we should, like, celebrate every win. If every single day, if you hit your word goal, celebrate it, tell someone, cheer, you know, brag about it on social media. And if people are negative about it, tell them shut up. I had a lot of negativity with my writing, that's why I kind of hid. And then this year I was like, no, I'm not going to do that. That comes from your jealousy and your lack of fulfilling the things you want, because you can see I'm doing what I want and it's annoying you, but that's because you feel unfulfilled. Don't let anyone bring you down. So celebrate everything. Celebrate that you've written a full chapter. Celebrate that you've written 1,000 words. I don't care what it is. And if you've got nowhere to celebrate, come into our Indie Author Roadmap group and celebrate. We will celebrate with you no matter what it is. We will cheer you on every step of the way. And my last tip, 15, is to remember why you started in the first place. You can get to the middle of your book and it can feel like, why am I doing this? And it's going back to that inspiration, the thing that had you all fired up for writing the story. Why did you want to write it? Sometimes we can get into our own heads of trying to get that book perfect or thinking about what potential readers are going to think about it and put us off. No, you need to get back to the fun of it. Last year I was really struggling with writing because I was always thinking about the reader, about the audience, and so my creativity was being hindered because of my own thoughts, because I was like, oh, they're not going to like this, blah, blah, blah. And I thought, do you know what? I'm just going to write a book for myself, and if I don't publish it, it doesn't matter. And I had the best time writing it, and I didn't get stuck anywhere in that book at all. And it was my fun place to be, and it was kind of a reminder as why I am a writer, rather than why I was writing that book. So just, why do you want to write this book you're writing? What is it you want to say? What is it you want to feel? What is it you want to do? And just keep that in your brain and keep going with it. And that's my 15 tips. So I hope they helped you, and I hope there was something in there that can help you to get through writing 50,000 words or a full novel in a month or whatever it is your goal. Come and tell me your goal. I'd love to hear and cheer you on. And if you are partaking in whatever version of Novel Writing Month in November, I'd love to hear about that too. And I just want to say, you've got this, you can do this, and just write your book one word at a time, one scene at a time, but have fun. Really enjoy the story, enjoy your world, enjoy your characters, because the first person you need to write for is yourself. So I'm going to leave that there and wish you a happy writing month, whatever you're doing, and I'll see you next time. Bye for now.